Welcome back. Now, there's virtually no sector that is not affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the industries at the very heart of this outbreak now, which the entire world is looking up to for a possible solution, is the pharmaceutical industry. The case is a bit more dynamic in Nigeria, where there is a huge dependence on drug importation. Now, with COVID-19, every country is hoarding supplies for their own use. And this has raised calls for Nigeria and other African countries to look inwards and develop their own solutions. Last month, the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Bankers Committee rolled out palliative measures to boost innovation in the country's pharmaceutical sector. This includes the provision of grants to some companies to enable them procure raw materials and equipment now to boost local drug production in the country. Good step, you would say, but let's now hear from the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, Sambo Huabungwa, on what the impact of the coronavirus has been for the industry and, of course, what it plans to do to help the country find a solution to the pandemic. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the program. First off, how is the pharmaceutical industry being affected by COVID-19?
Well, the pharmaceutical industry is actually severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, largely in two ways. First is through sourcing of raw materials. The industry is facing acute shortages of raw materials because our sources of raw material, China and India, were compromised. China first because of the outbreak of the pandemic, COVID-19, and therefore the country was shut down. Subsequently, we were thinking maybe we could route our orders to India. But India also, because of the shutting down of China, decided to restrict its own imports so as to preserve what they have for local use, domestic use. So right now, the industry is having the difficulty of sourcing raw materials. So that is one. Two is that even for the products that are available, because of the increased global demand for some of these items that are used, especially in managing COVID-19 and other diseases, as prices have gone up. And prices going up means that costs have gone up, and costs going up means also that purchasing levels have also gone down. So the industry is facing difficulty in replenishing stock and even ability to meet its sales objectives.
So for you as the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, how important is the CBN Intervention Fund for your industry?
For me, it's one of the best things that have happened in this season. As they say, there's always something good in everything bad. The COVID-19 has suddenly, finally, I wouldn't say suddenly, brought the reality of our overdependence on imported pharmaceuticals, the dangers, the national security danger to everybody, importantly to government and to our bankers. So the CBN and the Bankers Committee decision to focus on the industry is very heartwarming because the intention is to build capacity, to enable pharmaceutical companies to be able to manufacture more products locally and also to be able to develop raw material sources because these are the two issues. Several years ago, more than 20 years ago, Nigerian government realized this. So they made a policy that by year 2000, that 75 or 70% of our pharmaceuticals should be produced locally. But before the COVID, we were not doing anything above 40%. So that has exposed us so significantly. And so this focus on the pharmaceutical industry by CBN and the Bankers Committee is a welcome relief because if everything goes well and we're able to source this funding, certainly we'll be moving our local production, moving local sourcing of raw materials, and we will no longer be as dependent with all the risk that we have had to deal with at this time.
Now, there is a race to find a vaccine for COVID-19. Don't you think this is also a chance for Africa and Nigeria in particular to look inward and develop its own drug for this disease?
Correct, which is why I am saying that beyond what we're doing now, beyond the CBN funding, which is to help the capacity for industrial output to grow, pharmaceutical industrial output. But in research and development, we are not doing much. And I'm asking that government of Nigeria should devote funds now to do research and development in vaccine development, in local medicine development, medicines that have both antiviral, antibacterial, anti-diabetic. There are so many drugs that some research have been done. Take the National Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development. They have done some research. Universities have done some work. But because there's not appropriate funding to scale up, those things remain on the bench, on the shelves, in laboratories. This is one great opportunity Nigeria has to break the mold. And I'm begging the Nigerian government. Thank God the private sector is supporting it with funding to buy this, to buy this. Government should now provide some money and give to the research institutes and give them mandates to bring out the earliest candidates to the market so that Nigeria will be able to have products it can sell to the rest of the world, in addition to having the one to deal with its own domestic medical needs. And should we run into this kind of situation again, where borders will be closed, where there will be no aircraft, we will be able to depend on our local products, not just the ones we formulate, but the ones that we produce from our local resources. There are a plethora of evidence and candidates that are willing, that are ready, if sufficient funding is provided, to finish the research and go through clinical trials.
How would you assess the current efforts at containing the spread of the disease in Nigeria and, of course, across Africa?
Well, I think governments are making efforts, but I am not sure that Nigerians and Africans are really in full terms with what the issues are. When I look at what is going on in the UK, what is going on in Spain, in Italy, in what had gone on in China and the US, these are nations with very sophisticated healthcare systems, very sophisticated surveillance methods, and yet they are where they are. But here, we are taking it as a joke. People are putting their lockdowns, some countries have declared lockdowns, and you get people defying those lockdowns, defying the curfew, and treating it as if it is not an issue. Yes, I believe that people need to eat, but which is more important, to be alive or to eat? Quarantining or isolating yourself or being locked down for 14 days cannot kill anybody per se. Even if people didn't eat for 14 days, they probably won't die, but they will save themselves from this virus. I think Nigerians are not taking it as seriously. I know the government has a responsibility to support the people, and they are trying their bit. They are talking about food being delivered to houses, talking about, that may not be enough, but that cannot be an excuse to subject ourselves to something that can potentially kill. So let us not use the excuse of poverty, excuse of no food, excuse of the fact that we are daily paid workers. We want to kill ourselves. I do not think that fatalistic reasoning is sufficient. I will want to ask governments to determine to have a complete shutdown and then enforce it. But for me, we are making the right noises, but I don't think execution is up to speed. And that's my worry, that we don't get to the point where we now have an exclamation of the community transmission. Wuhan has taught us that. China has taught us, and other countries that have been successful, South Korea and elsewhere, that one of the ways they have one of the things they did to stop this is first, lockdown, social distancing, making sure that in the public arena they wear face masks because it protects everybody. These are the things we should enforce so that this COVID-19 will come and pass, and Nigeria and Africa can return to their normal business.
One final question before I let you go. How damaging do you think COVID-19 will eventually be for developing economies like Nigeria?
Indeed, I shudder to think of the damage that it's already caused and will be caused. It will be very, very damaging. We have a very fragile economy. economy, Nigerian economy, for example, South African economy, this economy is trying to come out of recession. And then this has come. So there is recession right now. And why this is going to be a more difficult recession to deal with is that it's not only grounding economic activity, which is what drives productivity and gross domestic product will calculate. It's not only putting people out of work, unemployment has gone high. It's not only that the daily paid workers, as we've spoken, have gone broke because there are not any no income. So there's elimination of purchasing power, but also the problem of the ability to produce. Not much production is going on. So we don't have what to produce. And after this exercise, after this COVID has come and gone, then we're going to run through the difficulty of replenishing stock, restarting plants, and that will take time. Now, when we are talking about all this, oil prices seem to have taken a plunge, and that means national incomes are going down. And when national incomes are going down, that worsens matter. There will be devaluation of currencies, there will be balance of payments, deficits, and misery may increase sufficiently. However, this is what other countries have noted, especially developed countries, and they're pumping stimulus. I don't see much of it happening in Nigeria or in Africa. We are very tepid. We should be as bold as the United States. They're in the fourth stimulus bill. The last one was $2 trillion, and they are looking at more. So this is to be able to avert that consequence eventually. But in Nigeria and Africa, again, perhaps understandably, they don't have much reserves, and so they can't do much in giving what they do not have, except if they start printing money that has no value, in which case we should prepare for very difficult times after now to be able to restart our companies, restart our production, and begin to fund and meet our obligations, both as a nation and as individuals and companies. Rough times lie ahead, but what is important is let us be alive. I believe with God, we will overcome the rough times ahead.
Well, I have to ask one more question now. What is the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria doing to fight COVID-19 and ultimately find a solution to it?
Well, first is that we are making sure that our pharmacists in their different points of operations, whether they are community pharmacies in the community, or their hospital pharmacies, or their industrial pharmacies, or the academic pharmacies, wherever they are, that they are involved in being centers of information. They are doing enlightenment. Every patient, everybody that walks into their operational area must be educated and told how to prevent COVID. So in the area of enlightenment, education, we are active because we're in contact with the people in our different communities. Number two is that we have revved up production. We have advised our pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies to do all they can to sustain production. Not only COVID products, but also other products, because people are having malaria, people are having diabetes, hypertension. So if we left everything and just focus only on COVID, by the time we finish, other people have died for other diseases. So balance both. Focus on producing hand sanitizers. Focus on producing soaps. Focus on producing hygiene products, antiseptics, and all that. But also continue to provide opportunity to procure things which we don't produce, like the nose and face masks, the professional protective equipment, and such other things that are supporting. So pharmacists are involved in the supply chain, in ensuring that logistics are improved, products are coming, vaccine importers are the other day working to get shiploads of vaccines into the country to make sure that those who need vaccines or who are in insulin or such other things that we don't make locally are provided. Thirdly, we have mandated our companies and pharmaceutical scientists to get into the research mode and begin to seek how they can produce locally developed items, both for fighting the virus and fighting other diseases. A number of pharmaceutical scientists have developed certain products that are currently going on through some clinical trials. Some are going on through regulatory reviews. We have given a mandate to some pharmaceutical scientists to float companies through which they can see if they can access funding from the CBN to be able to go into research. So while we're going into manufacturing and scaling up our capacity to supply and manufacture and supply, we're also scaling up capacity to research and develop local products. A number of pharmaceutical scientists, professors are doing this. And I believe by a combination of all that, of course, yesterday we went to the Lagos State government to donate certain items to support the work. On Monday, we're donating to the federal government hand sanitizers, antiseptics, face masks, and such other things that we think will support the work that is currently doing. In addition to also being on the front line, pharmacists are on the front line. They are supplying the medicines that are needed for managing currently COVID-19 patients and even for protecting those who are not yet affected. So we're completely involved in the activities to deal with COVID-19.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Sam Ohuabunwa, for speaking to us on the program. That was Sam Ohuabunwa, who is the president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. He also used to be the chairman of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Well, that's it on the program. Thank you very much for watching. But if you want to see the program again and lots more, just go to our website, TV360Nigeria.com. You'll see this program and lots more there. And you can also follow the conversation on our various social media platforms. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.